Today we're going to be getting into those shorter time frames. So thank you so much if you watched that macro video. If you haven't, we put out a little bit bigger time frame video yesterday, and you can check that out as the previous video on this channel. But we wanted to show you guys how this signal right here could mean bad things for Monday if it wants to continue. We noticed that it's already confirmed. We're going to get into that and so much more as we get into these shorter time frames. It is a time where we're like, hey, I hope you had some fun over the weekend, but it's time to get a little bit locked in because the market is opening. So we got to get into that technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta, and taking a small look at AMC and GME just to make sure we take a little look at that and talking about volatility and the dollar as we move forward throughout this video. You don't want to miss any of it. Let's get into it. As we get into the SPY, you're going to notice there's this little line over here. We're going to talk about that in a second, but first we got to get you guys those weekly expected moves. We do see 575.84 to the upside and 560.66 to the downside. So a small range this week, not a lot of implied volatility in the market, which tells us that we shouldn't expect too many crazy things. Now, obviously, if we get outside of these, you know that you have a 32% chance to see something crazy, but 68% of the time we will land in this zone every single week. And that's why we give out this information every single Sunday. Now, as we go into the daily expected moves, you're going to see 571.20 to the upside, and we have 565.30 to the downside. Now, key to note here, this is also a very small range within a small weekly range. Okay, so there's not a lot of implied volatility going into Monday. So that is something to keep in mind. That means most likely we will land somewhere in this area, right? 68% of the time. But when these are closer together, you have to pay attention because it means you need less selling, right? You don't need as much selling to see something crazy, aka maybe go down towards a weekly expected move. Now, the signal that we wanted to first point out was this one right here, right? I'm just going to do it on the hourly chart. It's kind of there on the 2 hour. I like the 2 hour. We might go look over at that for a moment, but I just want you to notice how it is all right here on your indicators. Very, very clear here on the MACD, on the RSI at the same time. You have the price action going up, but your momentum signals are turning down, telling you, hey, this could reverse the trend around. Now, this still is relatively high up into positive territory, so that could curl back up. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But as we look forward, we can notice that what did we start to do if we're going to really head down from here with this type of signal? Okay, well, this right here looks like some potential flagging, and that could continue. If that is going to continue, then maybe this is just a simple ABC pattern. And now you're like, okay, where's that line? Because this is the measurement right here. And if we took from that area, right, we'll take the wick there. If we take it from that area, we can notice that where would we end up? Well, we'd end up down by that weekly expected move. So if we get a simple ABC pattern, you can get a move down to that weekly expected move. And if you're going to head even lower from that, well, then that would be the perfect area to see some kind of left head and right shoulder on this hourly chart. So that is something I would pay attention to for downside. Now, on this channel, we do like to say we trade like water. We trade the signals, right? So if signals start to flip around, we have to be ready to react. So it's good to be aware of some bullish things that could be happening early on in the week. And one of those bullish things that could happen early on in the week is a 30-minute, okay? I know that the 30-minute does have some divergence points right here, right? It does have those divergence points, and we notice that. But if this wanted to head higher and get really close to that center line and make a divergence, that might be something to pay attention to. What if we end up doing something like this very early on and we see that kind of signal? That would more so lead to us to believe, hey, more downside is going to come. That is some serious weakness in momentum. We might need a pullback. As of right now, I am actually leaning more towards the downward direction. I am really leaning towards that downward expected move, and that's going to make a lot more sense as we get into the Qs. That's right, on this channel as well, we like to say this too. It is very good to pay attention to the entire video because sometimes we mention something that can help you out. If you're trading the SPY, it's also good to look at volatility. If you're trading the Qs, it's good to look at some of the tech stocks. So that's what we do on this channel. And let's just hop over into the Qs straight away. You know now that the SPY does have that 30-minute can curl up. That would be the bullish thing. And I think that the 2 hour here is overall saying, hey, I need a pullback. So if that 2 hour continues down, I'd really look for that weekly expected move. That looks like the bullish and bearish cases for the SPY. Qs, we'll look at this from the 2-hour perspective. As this thing has not crossed yet, that is still bullish in this moment, right? Momentum is still saying, hey, I'm still good to go. The only problem is you have this flatness of the RSI, you have the flatness of the MACD telling you, hey, this actually could be a reversal in trend, so I'd pay attention to that. But what if that just curls down and gets that retest and happens to be where that weekly expected move is? So let's talk about those weekly expected moves. 491.41 to the upside. We do have 473.47 to the downside, okay? So this area right here is where I'll really be paying attention. If this is just going to be some kind of simple ABC pattern, we could end up right down towards that area. It would be a great retest of the breakout from these highs up in here, right? We connected these highs to make that little trend. If we need to retest that area, maybe even go fill this gap, come a little below it. If we see any kind of reversal signals down here, maybe we're able to catch some kind of bounce. That's right. We pay attention to the signals. And this 2-hour here, even though it's showing some flatness, overall, it's still up here in positive territory, right? So if that's going to dramatically fall, okay, that might take some time. But if that wants to curl up, then we would know, hey, we have another upside move, and this was just some kind of retest. Now for tomorrow, this is actually the smallest range I've seen in a few weeks for the Qs as far as even the weekly moves go. So your 68% zone's a little smaller this week. And then for Monday, that's even smaller, right? This is a very, very small range for tech stock for the Qs. And we have 485.76 to the upside, and we do have 479.12 to the downside, okay? So this is going to be a very tight range, which means 68% chance that we kind of see something a little bit stagnant, right? A little bit stagnant. But as that is closer, then you have to be aware if this starts to break through, because you could be seeing something crazy early on in the week. So let's just pay attention to that as we move forward. Right now for the Qs, really leaning towards that retest, but we also know if that 2-hour curls over retest, we also know that if the Qs actually do curl up on this 30-minute, then you can see an upside move, okay? So this is where you pay attention to both sides. That 2-hour hasn't crossed yet, but neither has the 30-minute. If the 30-minute crosses up, you can go create a point of divergence. Watch out if you get above this early on in the week, because that could be a signal, hey, we might actually end up fading this kind of move. And then if you're going to curl down on a 2-hour, then you want to pay attention to that and react accordingly. That's right, we react on this channel. We don't try to guess what's happening. We don't try to really predict. We just try to think of the scenarios in which we are going to have to react, right? We pay attention to momentum to give us a hint if things are going to curl back up. For the Qs right now, it looks like the bullish thing would be the 30-minute curls up into positive territory, and then you got to watch out for a divergence. But on the downside part, if you're going to get bearish on this thing, then you got to curl down on a 2-hour. And as of right now, that looks like it would more likely be a pullback for some kind of retest. One thing I'm paying attention to is Apple, actually. I actually really like the look of Apple, whether it would be bullish. I think that would be a very good thing, because if Apple is going to run into this area where it could find that weakness, well, this could just be some kind of overall cupping and handling. I know this might have violated that, but overall, we could go into an area where you need to compile up before you're able to break through. And something like a 2-hour pullback can really help with that. So if you just get a couple of days worth of selling, you get down by that center line, and then you curl up into positive territory, well, Apple could see a pretty massive move, right? So that's why we give you the weekly ranges for every stock that we cover. Maybe Apple does do something insane. We'll have to see. But the overall bullish thing here, I'm mainly going to talk about bullish after a pullback, because this thing is overall overbought on the 2-hour. And right now it looks like we need some sort of pullback. So there's no real reversal signals in here saying this has to crash down. This is saying more so that it's going to be some kind of pullback that turns back up into positive territory. And the reason that we're overall talking about pullback is because we kind of saw this 30-minute just leak up to the upside, kind of just having the MACD point straight down, telling you this was some kind of little mini squeeze in here. And we see a bunch of divergence, right? We see the divergence on that RSI pop up. So this is the weakness that can roll over 2-hour charts. That can happen from here. Obviously, the first thing you're going to want to pay attention to, even if it's a bullish move, is does this 30-minute curl back up, right? Does this 30-minute just curl back up into positive territory? Those are all things to be aware of with Apple. 30-minute curl ups, and then if the 2-hour crosses down, well, then you might have to be a little bit more patient, but pay attention if that curls back up, because you might have a pretty significant cup and handle there. Tesla on the 30-minute, we noticed that the 30-minute is really, really close to that center line on the MACD, right? We're close to the center line on the RSI. We're close to the center line on the MACD. We broke out of a zone. Now we're retesting into it, right? We talk about that a lot. In order to break through these zones, usually you have to break through them, retest inside, and then you can maybe find those buyers, right? This zone can go from a seller zone, right? Sell off, into a buy zone. And so that's what we're paying attention to. The support down here, or the resistance down here, becoming support. And the overall thing with with that is, do we see reversal signals here? No, you don't. Not on a 30-minute, not on the short time frame. And normally you will always see it on the short time frame if you're going to see a bigger time frame fall down. It doesn't happen all the time. You can see V-shapes and things like that. But for the most part, if the 30-minute does curl up, that can be great. There can be a little bit more upside here for the stock. But if we remain in that big flagging on the daily scale, we covered that over the weekend. You can go check out that video. But you might have a 30-minute divergence here for Tesla. Okay, so that's something I'm very much so paying attention to, because this 2-hour is way up here. You have divergence all across this thing. So if we actually head higher early on in the week for Tesla, watch out for that 30-minute divergence, especially if it's outside of a weekly range. The weekly ranges haven't been as big this week as usual. So if Tesla just makes some kind of 30-minute move, it could be outside of that range, and then you see a reversal signal, and the 2 hours starts to fall, and that can really start to reverse over the bigger time frame. So I would really be paying attention to that if I was trading something like Tesla. As of right now, you can't really say which way this is going to go. As of right now, you know you're in a 30-minute pullback, and you have to be ready to react if you see a 30-minute divergence. So right now it'd be the 2-hour curls down, bad. If the 30-minute curls up, good. We can see some bullishness. And then you see things like Amazon on the 2-hour, and you go, wow, this thing is really just holding up pretty well here, and the 2-hour just crossed. So that thing can see some more upside. The only problem with that is you have a bunch of divergences within, I would say, this little level here, and we can pay attention to that right now, because what if this needs to turn down early in the week? So as we go into a shorter time frame, maybe a 30-minute, you're going to see a bunch of divergence. Now that you're zoomed out, or zoomed in actually, into a shorter time frame, you can really see how that 30-minute is just coming down. Okay, so you haven't necessarily turned down from here, you haven't been crossed over, right? You're crossing back up. So right now you should expect positivity, but if negativity comes in early on, you can really start to break through a lot of this. As this has gotten pretty tight, you're looking for a big move. So if we're going to experience some more pain, I expect this 30-minute to flip right to the downside, maybe looking at this 2-hour able to flip to that downside as well. Now, is that going to be a very bearish thing? Well, that is a rejection. So if you do get that rejection divergence right there, I would say rejection because that's like barely a blip up, then you have to pay attention to daily scales. This daily's been moving up and up and up for a long time. If this needs a more significant pullback, then Amazon can experience that at this point. I'm not necessarily leaning towards it because the 2-hour is still relatively high up. So this could just be a blip that then turns back up later on. So that is something I'd pay attention to with Amazon. For NVIDIA, if it's going to see that positivity, this 2-hour's got to turn back up, but I think we got to pay attention to a shorter time frame here, because I think this is more helpful, right? I think the 30-minute is more helpful here. If we're going to see more upside, well, then you're going to see a 30-minute curl up into positive territory, and maybe this was just some kind of consolidation in order to head higher. So that is something I would pay attention to. Now, you look a little bit flaggy here. You weren't able to act like Tesla, right? Break through that sell zone, retest into it, and then be able to go higher. Right now, you went into it, and the seller stepped in. You went into it and the seller stepped in. So this is still holding as resistance at this point. In order to turn it into some kind of support, you really need to break through that top side of the zone. So this is something we'll pull up a bunch during our live videos this week. Make sure to tune in, make sure you're subscribed and like the video right now so that you can see when we are live every single day. It's usually right away at the open. Okay, so 30-minute curls up for NVIDIA. That's really what I would be paying attention to, because if that does curl up, you can see some kind of breakout. Watch for those reversal signals, right? But for the most part, you can see a breakout, and maybe we're able to get rid of some bad signal right here, right? Crossing over near the center line. Maybe we can get rid of that with some kind of strong move and then see some kind of reversal signal later. So as of right now, 30-minute curl up is something I am paying attention to, but just so you're aware, that is curled down right now. So that would mean negativity is the most likely option. As of right now, the 2-hour tried to go up, did not hold that, right? Confirmed right back down. So curled right back down, telling you, hey, this most likely will head to the downside. As of right now, it's saying 2-hour pullback. If that crosses that center line right here on the MACD, well, then you can see that negativity continue. Maybe we end up down in these areas. So these are all things that we mainly, with NVIDIA, I would say you more so want to see the first couple hours of trading, and that will really help you out with these type of trade setups. Right now, AMD, the reason I'm paying attention to it is because it's kind of similar to NVIDIA, right? But for the most part, the technicals look a little bit different. You actually do have a 2-hour divergence that has confirmed, right? But we started to curl back up. We're going to talk about that in a second. But if this confirmation means something, that means the daily scale can turn down. And that's not going to be a good thing for AMD if that happens. Why is that going to be a bad thing? Well, because you're very, very close to the center line, right? This isn't a MACD that's way up here or something, and we can say, oh, if this pulls back and then curls up, we can see positivity like we did in the past. No, it's not necessarily like that this time. This time it's much more close to the center line, which means that can go into a negative trend quickly. It means it can take out this low and go make a new one. So I would really be paying close attention to AMD. Now, as we look at a 30-minute, you're going to notice something a little bit different, though. This thing saw some major strength towards the end of the day on Friday, and it almost curled up, but it just wasn't able to do it. So you still want to see that confirmation. As of right now, this is still saying down is the most likely option according to momentum. But if that curls up first thing in the week, you could see that upside move. Watch out for 160.83 or that weekly expected move that we get about on Patreon. That is down in the link in the description if you want to join to get those ranges for stocks like AMD or any stock that we're covering. If that 30-minute curls up, what if we run into a weekly expected move and we create some kind of reversal signal? That is when we will be making our videos on YouTube and notifying you about it. And if it happens during the live video, then we will be notifying you about it live. Now remember, Meta was the different one, and there's not a lot of reversal signals here. You're just seeing everything really get cooked to the upside. So I would say for Meta, a pullback is the most likely scenario for this week, or at least the early parts of this week, just because this 2 hours has been going up and up and up for a long, long time here. We didn't even create a solid handle here to really head higher, right? Give some kind of structure to head higher. We didn't really get that. So maybe Meta has to come get a retest. Maybe Meta just has to pull back on the 2 hour in some way before it's able to curl up. And the reason we talk about these type of things when we see a move like this is obviously a very strong move, but we talk about this because we don't want to get FOMO'd into something. We still want to be taking a trade when the setup is good. The setup here is not good if I'm an option trader. That's just facts. It is really, really, really high, and it's gone up for a long, long time, and it is overbought. It is really high on the MACD. So the most likely thing I should wait for if I wanted to find a good trade setup is for that 2 hour to curl down and just curl back up into positive territory. That is going to be the main thing for Meta going on this week. There's not much more you can really look at as far as Meta goes, but I would think some kind of, filling of this gap, some kind of retest would make total sense. AMC and GME, and something we're paying attention to on the 2 hour as of this moment is the fact that AMC actually did have a 2 hour divergence. You kind of see that flatness right here, and we see that that is a little bit higher on that MACD. Okay, so if I hold my cursor there, you see how this point is higher than my cursor, right? That dotted line. And then you see the same thing over here on the RSI. Now, this is a signal that more so showed right here. It's kind of elongated a little bit, so I think you can take it with a grain of salt, but this is a type of signal that can reverse around that daily scale. You saw some strong things at the end of Friday. So if this is able to curl up, I think that's a really good signal to say 2 hour can go positive, and this daily might actually be able to turn up, and we know there's divergence there. So keep that in mind with AMC. As we go over to GME, you're noticing, hey, it does have the daily divergence. Sorry, I get hiccups at least once during my video. But you'll notice that, hey, it does have the divergence as well. We notice it is very, very obvious that this is going down, right? This is going down with the closing of those bars. And your MACD is pointing up. Your RSI from this point is pointing up. So we can pay attention to this. If that daily is able to curl up, what can curl up the daily? Well, if the 2 hour is able to see that positivity, we see a rejection divergence right here. And you see that on your RSI down here, right? You see how this is an upward move from this level, slightly up there. And we notice that the MACD was just rejected right there from crossing and just curled right back up. So boom, to the upside. One big thing is going to be this going positive and AMC following behind it. But the overall big signal to pay attention to on both of these is going to be that daily scale able to turn up into positive territory. We do update you guys on the level that you're going to need in order. Sorry, I got to make sure to pull this up. The level that you're going to need to see something crazy, right? Because most people are paying attention to these because there could be some kind of short squeeze. So in order to see some kind of gamma squeeze, you're going to have GME get through a level of 2412, right? 2412 to the upside is overall what you need to get through. It's a little bit higher up, right? And then I'm just going to make sure to give you that level for AMC, as I kind of forgot during that portion, but we won't hold me to that. And we'll see that the upside, in order to see something crazy, is going to be 530 for AMC. So just right there at 530 is what I'm going to be paying attention to. Right there on GME at 2412 is also a level I'm going to pay attention to. That is the gamma squeeze level. That is where something unexpected is happening and the options market is pricing in. That's your unexpected area. So if you break through that, you can start to see some kind of gamma squeeze, and then that could lead into a short squeeze. A gamma squeeze will happen first, right? Buying begets buying begets buying. And then after that, that can cause people that have short positions to have to cover those positions, and that's where the short squeeze can step in. The dollar around this area, we said this looks like the bottom for the dollar. It looks like we're going to see some kind of bounce or an overall bottom for the dollar in this area. And you notice that was with a 4-hour divergence at the lows. Still far away from the center line, but it was able to do it. And then we even got a 30-minute divergence or a 2-hour divergence that we were able to see right here with this double bottom. So this was very, very cool because we pointed out that it could make that double bottom, and it looks fantastic. Even got the rejection on a 4-hour. We do pay attention to 4-hour charts for the DXY. And what we notice in recent times here is that same sort of signal is kind of popping up here, right? And it is closer to the center line this time. So this tells me that this could just be a bottom for the dollar right now. Now, I will be surprised. Obviously, things can still curl down, things can go lower, but this is saying right now that the momentum is weak, and we just confirmed it back to the upside. So that just tells me I need to pay attention. Why would cash be going up? Because usually when cash goes up, stocks or assets usually do go down, and that's why I want to pay attention to volatility. That's right, volatility we need to pay attention to this week, because you're noticing some signals in here, right? We have a 4-hour here that you can look at, and you can see that obvious divergence. I would really be paying attention to the 4-hour if that's able to curl up, because that daily time frame can curl up. That's the main thing we want to watch here. But if you want to get a little closer into it, you can look at a 2-hour. The 2-hour looks fantastic here. You don't necessarily have the divergence on the RSI on this chart, but it is very significant on the MACD. So it is something that can flip around that trend, and you can have volatility going back into a positive trend very soon, even come early on this week. So it is a time where you have to be paying attention and being a little bit cautious. As we go into a 30-minute for volatility, you're noticing you have divergences as well. So can the 2-hour curl up here? Yes, it can. And this is why you really have to be on your toes early on this week. This is why we do live videos, so that we can watch stocks with you and tell you what is the most likely thing that's happening at that moment, right? The 2 hours pulling down, oh, that just looks like a pullback, but sometimes we have reversal signals. And so with volatility here, and you're seeing that 2-hour reversal signal, that is when we are going to say, watch out, because this means volatility has a higher probability this time of coming in with a little bit more steam behind it. So I think the main takeaway from this video is volatility saying, hey, we can see some major drop, but we always have to pay attention to if things can curl back up, right? So we'll pay attention to those weekly ranges. We'll pay attention to if there's an upside move first with a reversal signal. We have a lot to watch, and that's why we're going to go live early on every single day of this week. And you guys can join us and ask questions and everything like that. But overall, I'm just glad that we all had a good weekend. I hope you guys were able to get some good food, hang out with family, and do all those types of things. But for the most part, it's time to get ready. It's time to get ready, because this market does have a good opportunity to see some volatility this week. And if not this week, well, then we might have to talk again in another 3 weeks about some volatility coming in. But we'll pay attention to the signals with you, see if things are curling up for those positive moves as well. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to streaming with you guys live tomorrow morning, and I hope you have a great night. All right, peace.